If you'd asked me 5 years ago who had the perfect life, I might have said me. Maybe not out loud, 'cause that'd sound arrogant. But inside? Yeah, things were solid. I had a wife who knew how to work a room, a mortgage that didn't own me, and a circle of friends who all seemed to agree Barbara and I were that couple, steady, sharp, clean edges. Like a piece of IKEA furniture that actually held up. We lived just outside Columbus, Ohio. Decent neighborhood, split-level ranch, fresh paint, tight driveway, and a lawn I actually gave a damn about. I worked in municipal engineering, contracts, permits, all the bureaucratic jazz that keeps towns from turning into pothole graveyards. Barbara was an office manager at a dental group downtown. She had a way of making people think she was smarter than them, and usually, she was. When she'd talk about patience and staff politics, I'd listen with a kind of reverent amusement, like watching a cat tiptoe around a glass shelf. She always landed on her feet. Now, I won't paint her as some angel I put on a pedestal. That wouldn't be true, and more importantly, it wouldn't be fair. Barbara and I had our share of long silences. She hated how I left my socks on the floor. I hated how she chewed gum like it owed her money. But we also had Friday night shows and this dumb thing we did every Sunday where we rated church coffee like we were wine critics. Hints of burnt Folgers with an acidic finish. I figured that's what marriage was. Not butterflies and champagne, but a quiet, gritty sort of companionship where you don't flinch when the other person is brushing their teeth with the door open. But lately, something had been off. And I mean off in that annoying, slippery way you can't quite pin down. Like there's a noise in your car, but the mechanic can't hear it. You drive around sounding crazy. I swear it was there. It started in spring. First little thing was Barbara's sudden interest in a book club. Now, don't get me wrong, my wife reads. Always has. But this was a whole new level. Weekly meetings, all-night text with people I'd never heard of, laughing at messages like a teenager. I asked once, just offhand, "So who's in the group?" She said, "Just a mix of people. Women. A couple guys. It's not a big deal." That's what she said a lot. Not a big deal. If I had a nickel for every time I heard that, I'd be able to pave my own damn street. Then she changed her password on her laptop. Now, I wasn't snooping. I'm not that guy. But I'd gone to order something for her birthday, and her browser autofill was gone. The machine might as well have sneezed on me and said, "Not your business, pal." When I asked her about it, she gave me that look, the one women have perfected over the centuries, the slow blink, slight head tilt, like they're giving you a moment to course correct before they start reading you the riot act. It's for work. HIPAA stuff. You wouldn't understand. That was the second time in a month she used that phrase. You wouldn't understand. I didn't push. Didn't hire anyone. Didn't check her phone or follow her car. I was raised Midwest Catholic. We're taught to feel guilty for suspecting things before we even find anything. The suspicion itself is a sin. So instead, I got quieter. Studied things. Noticed how she always came home after 7 now, how her perfume lingered longer than usual when she passed by, how she hummed songs she never used to like. One night, I caught her singing along to a track in the car that was clearly not her genre. I mean, Barbara listens to jazz, Motown, occasionally a little Nora Jones when she's moody. But this was some indie folk track by a guy named August Keys or something pretentious like that. "You like this guy?" I asked, trying to keep it casual. We were parked in the driveway. She froze for a second, just a flicker, then smiled too fast. "Oh, yeah. One of the girls in the book club recommended it." Right. The mythical book club again. I should have felt angry, but mostly I just felt stupid. Like I was missing something obvious, like everyone else was in on a joke I couldn't hear. So I started playing a game I called Observe and Pretend. I watched her more. Studied her. The fake yawns. The distracted nods. How she never asked about my day anymore. I could have told her I'd run into a bear at the Kroger, and she would have nodded and said, "MMM. Did you get eggs?" I should have confronted her right then. But the truth is, I was scared. Not of a fight. I'm no stranger to conflict. I've gone toe-to-toe with city inspectors, union reps, even my old man once over politics. What I was scared of was the silence. The kind that comes after the truth. I didn't want to live in that version of our house. Then something odd happened. My buddy Matt, who I hadn't seen in months, ran into Barbara, by chance, at a gas station across town. Said she was getting gas and seemed surprised to see him. Gave a weird explanation about visiting her aunt, except her aunt lives in Florida and she'd never mentioned a trip. Matt didn't think much of it. Just told me in passing, like you'd mentioned seeing a teacher outside of school. But I didn't say anything back. just nodded and smiled. Inside, my stomach felt like drywall mud. Thick, heavy, hardening fast. I tried to tell myself I was being paranoid. That maybe Barbara just needed space. A break. That it was just stress, or boredom, or hormones. That women get weird after 40. That maybe I'd gotten boring. That maybe it was me. So I made an effort. Booked us a weekend getaway to a cabin upstate. Just the two of us. I figured we'd reconnect, like we used to, back when we'd laugh about my bad cooking or watch documentaries just to make fun of the narrators. She agreed to the trip, but not without hesitation. Said she'd have to move some things around at work, and that she wasn't sure if she could take the time off. This was Barbara, the same woman who once called off an entire staff meeting because our cat had a sniffle. Suddenly she's career-focused? We went on the trip anyway. But it wasn't like before. She was polite, present, but only in the way a waitress is polite when she asks if everything's okay while already reaching for the check. Something behind her eyes was gone. That night, while she slept, I sat on the tiny wooden porch, staring out at the woods. I thought about our mortgage, our plans, her laugh, the way she used to rest her head on my shoulder during movies. I thought about how far we'd come from the people who used to get into the car and drive for hours just to get cheap pie from some roadside diner. I didn't know what she was doing, but I knew what she wasn't doing. She wasn't here anymore. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to snoop, wasn't going to chase, but I would start paying real attention, not to her stories, but to the details that didn't fit, to the background noise, the receipts, the rhythm. Because Barbara was clever. She didn't lie like a liar. She lied like someone who believed it. That's the most dangerous kind. And me? I'd spent the last 15 years learning how to read blueprints, permits, contracts. If there was a crack in our foundation, I was going to find it. I just didn't expect the way I'd find it to be so stupidly simple. But that's for next time. The discovery came on a Wednesday. Midweek is underrated for breakdowns. People expect drama on Fridays, maybe a Sunday evening if you're married to sentiment. But Wednesday? It's a day built for pretending. You wear the same khakis, reheat last night's dinner, go to work, come home, rinse and repeat. Nobody's looking for bombs on a Wednesday. And that's why it hit harder. That morning, Barbara had left early. Earlier than usual, actually. She said she had a quarterly team review and needed to get ahead of traffic. I asked if she wanted coffee to go, and she said no, which was weird because she's the type of woman who can't function until she's had caffeine in her system and 3 sarcastic tweets from her favorite Twitter account. Don't wait up, she said as she grabbed her keys. I smiled. She didn't. By 9 a.m., I was at the office, elbows deep in city permit renewals and an email thread with a guy named Doug who apparently doesn't know what a PDF is. At 10:45, I went to print something and realized the office printer was still jamming on the 3rd page. Again. So I did what every sane man in his 40s does. I muttered threats to it like a hostage negotiator and walked down the hall to use the department printer in HR. Now, I'm not normally in HR. It's not my domain. But we all know somebody who's married to someone who works in a different department, right? In my case, that someone was Nancy, HR manager. Knows everybody's birthdays, always smells like oranges for some reason. We've known each other for over a decade. Her husband, Steve, and I go fishing once a year and pretend we're rugged men even though we both need back support pillows by lunchtime. Anyway, Nancy was standing near the copier, fiddling with some binders. William, she said, look at you, invading HR like it's not a war crime. Hey, the public works printer died again. Figured I'd borrow yours. Be my guest. Just don't file a complaint if it tries to eat your document. I fed the printer my flash drive and hit print. While I waited, Nancy asked how Barbara was. Standard stuff. I gave the usual answers. Good, busy, tired. You know how it is. Then she said something. It was a throwaway line. A completely innocent, unimportant sentence that cracked the whole case open. She goes, well, at least you guys get to see each other at lunch sometimes. That must be nice. I blinked. Lunch. Yeah, I saw her a couple times at Tower 2 last week. Our branch office? She was with some of the dental group folks, I figured. Now here's the thing, Barbara doesn't work near Tower 2. That's the admin side of the city, next to the old train station. Her dental group's main office is in Midtown, in that plaza with the pretentious wine shop and the yoga place that charges $300 a month to teach people how to breathe. I smiled. Oh yeah. Yeah, she mentioned something about a meeting over there. I think. Nancy nodded and went back to her binders. The printer spat out my forms. I walked back to my office, set the paperwork on my desk, and sat down. And then I just stared at the screen. I didn't feel angry. Not yet. Just curious. Like I'd heard a song played in the wrong key. I opened my browser, typed in Tower 2 Dental Group, and got nothing. Then I searched the list of tenants for Tower 2. Law firms, tech consultants, a media startup, and one small financial advisor's office. No dentists. No hygienists. No oral surgeons. No reason at all for Barbara to be there. Unless someone she knew was. I didn't want to go full paranoia mode. Not yet. So I did something small. I opened our shared calendar, the one Barbara had insisted we use, so we're always on the same page. It hadn't been updated by her in weeks. Nothing scheduled. Not even the book club. That night, I waited until Barbara fell asleep, one leg tossed outside the blanket like she always does, her breathing slow and steady. I crept out of bed, opened my laptop, and did something I'd never done before. I went into our home office and dug through the drawer labeled receipts and stuff. We're old school. Barbara insists on printing important receipts for taxes. I figured maybe there was something, just one anomaly I could follow. It took 20 minutes. Wedged between a gas bill and a donation letter from the animal shelter was a receipt for a framing service. Custom frame, 18 by 24. Gold leaf, $262.08. Ordered 2 weeks ago. Customer name, Barbara Connors. Pickup location, Tower 2, ground floor. It wasn't about the frame. It was the date. I remembered that day. It was the day Barbara told me she was at a strategy planning dinner. Said it ran late. Didn't come home till after 10. I'd even saved leftovers for her, lasagna. So now I'm staring at a receipt for a frame. No photo, no art purchase, just a frame. Who was she framing a photo for? At this point, I wanted to believe it was a gift. Maybe for me. Maybe she had something planned for our anniversary. Maybe this was one of those stories people tell on Reddit about how they almost accused their partner, but then found out it was a surprise party all along. But I knew better. Barbara doesn't do surprise parties. She hates surprises. One time, I bought her a necklace for her birthday, and she asked if I kept the receipt before she even opened it. So I decided to take a detour on the way home from work the next day. Tower 2. I walked in like I belonged there. Middle-aged guy in business casual? Nobody questions that. There's a kind of invisibility that comes with being boring. I found the lobby directory and pretended to study it. Then I saw it, the name of the framing shop, tucked in next to a dry cleaner and a juice bar. I walked in, heart weirdly calm. The clerk at the counter looked up and said, "Hey, can I help you?" "Yeah," I said. "My wife Barbara Connors picked up a frame here a couple weeks ago. She told me it was gorgeous and I should get one for my office. Just wondering what it looked like." The guy nodded and turned his screen toward me. "We keep image references for every custom order." "Hang on." He clicked around, then stopped. "Yeah, here. This one." And there it was. The photo. A man and a woman. Laughing. Her head resting on his shoulder. His hand on her waist. Barbara. And someone else. He wasn't famous. Wasn't anyone I recognized. But the way he was looking at her? That look didn't belong to a friend. That wasn't a book club buddy. That was a look you give someone when you think nobody else in the world matters. And the frame? It had a brass plate at the bottom. It read, "For every chapter we've rewritten together." I stared at it, my eyes dry, my hands steady. The clerk said, "Nice, right?" I said, "Yeah, beautiful." Then I walked out. That night, I didn't confront her. I didn't slam doors or throw things or pull a Hollywood drama scene. I made dinner, set the table, poured her a glass of wine. She smiled at me like nothing had changed. And maybe, to her, nothing had. But to me, everything had. The thing about discovering betrayal is that it doesn't feel like fire. It feels like water. Cold, creeping, quiet. It seeps into everything before you realize you're already drowning. And now, I had a photo burned into my memory. Barbara and a man I'd never seen, framed like art, like a masterpiece she couldn't wait to display. Except not in our home. Not for me. But I had time. Because revenge? It doesn't work if you rush it. It works when you know exactly how to aim it. And Barbara had just handed me the blueprint. It took me 3 days to decide how to do it. Not because I didn't know what I wanted to say. I knew. I'd been drafting speeches in my head nonstop since seeing that photo. But I didn't want to blow up and give her an easy out. "No, you cheated. I'm leaving. Pack your stuff." That's what she'd expect. That's what every scumbag with a secret affair counts on, that the other person will explode, lose composure, give them an excuse to rewrite the narrative. He was so angry, so dramatic. It just wasn't working anymore. No, not this time. I wanted control. I wanted precision. I wanted her to see what it looked like when someone knew the truth and didn't flinch. So I waited for Saturday. She was always more relaxed on Saturdays, off guard. We had this ritual. Grocery store run in the morning, coffee at that overpriced place with the porch seating, then errands split between us. If you're gonna ambush someone, you do it when they think they're safest. At 9:03 a.m., we were walking down aisle 5 at Kroger. She was squinting at cereal boxes, comparing fiber content like it was a United Nations summit. "Do you want regular granola or the one with flax?" she asked without looking up. I studied her. She was wearing jeans, sneakers, that gray sweater she always claimed made her look casual but still smart. Hair tied back. Zero makeup. She looked ordinary. Not like someone who had someone else's hand around her waist in a gold leaf frame. "I'm fine with either," I said. She grabbed the flax one, tossed it in the cart, and moved on. After checkout, we headed to the cafe. Got our drinks, sat on the porch like usual. She started talking about a coworker who got fired for showing up late one too many times. I nodded along, waiting for the right moment. And then, mid-sentence, I set my cup down and said, "You're seeing someone." She stopped, mouth open, blinking. It was actually kind of incredible to watch. She laughed. A short, dry sound. "What? You're seeing someone?" I repeated. "You're cheating on me, Barbara." Her fingers tightened around her coffee cup. "Where the hell is this coming from?" "Tower 2. Ground floor. Custom frame shop. $262.08, including tax." She froze. I kept going, my voice calm. Almost conversational. "You know what's funny? That wasn't even what gave it away. You know what did? Nancy. She saw you near that building last week and thought you were meeting someone from work. But there's no dental office near there. So I checked the directory. Nothing. Then I saw the receipt in our files." She opened her mouth. Closed it again. "Don't bother denying it," I said. "I saw the photo. You and him. Laughing like you hadn't just left your husband at home folding laundry." She leaned back in her chair, crossed her arms. "You went through my stuff? You printed a receipt and filed it under receipts and stuff. I didn't need a warrant. I needed eyes." Silence. I waited. And finally, she spoke. "I didn't plan it." "Oh, that's good," I said. "Because if you had, it would have been embarrassing how sloppy you were." She looked down, then back up. "It's not what you think." That made me laugh. Couldn't help it. "Barbara, you framed a photo of you and another man with a quote. Unless that quote is from a dental hygiene seminar, I think I'm right on target. I didn't mean for it to happen." I stared at her. "That's your line? You tripped and fell into an affair. It just evolved. Like bacteria." She flinched. I didn't apologize. "Who is he?" I asked. "Don't lie." She hesitated. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." She looked away. "His name's Derek. He works in city communications. We met through one of those interdepartmental projects last spring." Of course. Derek. That sounded about right. A guy who probably wore Patagonia fleece and talked about podcasts like they were scripture. "And you just evolved into an affair with Derek?" "It wasn't like that. It started with coffee, then talking, then you framed a memory together." "Right." I stood up. She reached for my hand, and I pulled it back like she was on fire. "Don't," I said. "You lost the right. William, please." "I'm not yelling. I'm not throwing a scene. I'm not even calling you names. You know why?" She shook her head slowly. "Because I'm not the one who should be ashamed." She stared up at me, eyes wet now. The tears were real. I could see that. But real tears don't buy you back into a house you burned down. "I don't want to lose us," she whispered. "There is no us. You ended it. You just forgot to tell me." She opened her mouth again, but I cut her off. "I don't want explanations. I want clarity. And I've got it now." And then I did the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I left. Left her sitting there on the porch with 2 coffees and a half-eaten croissant between us. Left her with the weight of her own decisions pressing down on her chest like gravity suddenly doubled. I didn't go home. I drove. Around the block. Around the city. My knuckles white on the steering wheel. And then I called my lawyer. Not because I wanted to burn the house down, but because I wanted to make sure when this was over, Barbara couldn't light another match. By that night, she was texting me. Paragraphs. Walls of justification, mixed with nostalgia. Things like, I just want to talk. Can we go back to how it was? I was lost. I still love you. I read every word. And then I powered off my phone. Because I didn't need love from someone who could hand it out to strangers like flyers at a farmer's market. I needed to focus. Because revenge was coming. Not a messy, impulsive act. A plan. Barbara framed a memory with another man? I was about to frame her reality. And she wouldn't even see it coming. You know what's funny about being betrayed? It sharpens your instincts. It's like emotional LASIK. You see everything clearly after that. No more wishful thinking, no more benefit of the doubt, no more assuming someone loves you just because they said, I do, once in a rented chapel with string lights and a mediocre caterer. After that day at the cafe, something inside me shifted. Not broke, shifts are different. Breaking is reactive. A shift is strategic. I didn't want to scream or sob. I wanted a clean hit. One she'd feel deep in her chest, right where she thought she was safe. The first thing I did was simple. I didn't go home. Not for a full 48 hours. Let her sit in the silence. Let her wonder. Let her rehearse apologies in her head while looking around our shared house and realizing every piece of furniture she picked was sitting in the judgmental quiet I used to fill. When I finally walked back through the door Sunday night, Barbara was waiting in the living room. She'd clearly been parked there a while. Her legs were folded under her like she used to do when we watched crime shows together. Except now, she wasn't watching anything. The TV was off. Her eyes were red. She looked up fast when she heard the door, like a kid getting caught sneaking cookies. Hey, she said, like she didn't know if that word was still allowed. I didn't answer. I dropped my keys on the counter, walked past her, went straight to the bedroom, and shut the door. Not slammed. Just shut. The next morning, she tried small talk. Made coffee. Toast. Left a post-it on the fridge that said, we need to talk. I crumpled it, tossed it in the trash, and left for work. This was all step one. Let her marinate. Let her feel the chill of someone who once loved her now walking around like a polite stranger. But step two? That's where it got fun. See, Barbara thought I was just a hurt husband. Emotional. Reactive. Probably crying in my car somewhere. What she didn't know was that for the last 6 years, I'd managed infrastructure budgets, compliance logs, and city contracts. My entire job was untangling red tape and making problems disappear. You don't do that for years without learning how to move quietly and efficiently. And I had a plan. Barbara's birthday was in 2 weeks. She always made a thing out of it. Big dinner, invites to friends, a rented space, a cake that somehow cost more than a microwave. This year was supposed to be her 41st. Nothing major, but she wanted to do it right, since she hated how 40 went. I'd already RSVP'd to the venue months ago. She had no clue what I was about to turn that night into. First, I got in touch with a guy named Kevin Marks, used to work in city comms. Barbara knew him, kind of. They crossed paths once or twice. Kevin and I had helped write a public policy grant back in 2018, and he owed me a favor. Derek, the guy Barbara was seeing, also worked in city comms. Kevin confirmed it. And Kevin? He wasn't a fan of Derek. Said the guy was a smooth talker, bad at follow-through, and had a habit of networking too hard with married coworkers. So I fed Kevin a script. Just a nudge. Something casual. A week before the party, he ran into Barbara by accident at a council mixer. He said, and I quote, "Hey, I didn't know Derek was dating someone from the zoning department too." Small world, huh? That little grenade did exactly what I wanted. Barbara came home that night wired and anxious, pacing the kitchen like a lab rat waiting for a shock. She tried to ask me if I'd talked to anyone about our stuff. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "You really think I have the energy to talk about you right now?" She bought it, which made it even better when I quietly set up the guest list for her birthday. I didn't invite Derek, but I invited Nancy, and I invited Kevin, and I made sure the place we rented, an event room above a craft beer place she loved, had working Wi-Fi and a projector. Then I printed a few things. A copy of the receipt from the frame shop, a screenshot of the frame itself, a copy of the email confirmation for the venue, under her name, dated 2 months prior, the one where she'd written, "I just want this night to feel like I'm surrounded by people who love and support me." And then, I made my real move. 3 days before the party, I emailed Barbara. Just one sentence. "Let's give you the birthday you deserve." She replied with a nervous, "Sounds good," smiley face. I don't think she even knew how to read me anymore. That was part of the beauty of it. She trained herself to assume I was predictable, thoughtful, safe. But when people can't read you, They can't brace themselves. Party day. She wore this pale blue dress, her favorite color. Hair curled. That same laugh she used to give me now floating through a room full of people who didn't know they were part of an exhibit. I waited until the cake was done, the music had faded, and the room was buzzing with the kind of loose, half-drunk chatter people fall into after a couple of drinks. Then I clinked my glass. People turned. Barbara smiled, thinking I was going to toast her. I did. Just not how she expected. I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight, I said. Barbara has always loved being surrounded by friends. It makes her feel safe. Celebrated. Untouchable, even. A few people chuckled. Nervous. Confused. I continued. Now, when you love someone, you do things for them. You protect them. You keep their secrets. Even when those secrets start to rot. Barbara was frozen. Not smiling anymore. I reached into the folder I'd hidden behind the cake table. Held up the printed receipt. This is a custom framing receipt for a photo Barbara had made. Not of us. Of her and another man. Gasps. A dropped fork. I tapped the projector remote. Click. Up on the wall flashed the photo of Barbara and Derek. Laughing. Framed. She told me it wasn't what I thought. But then again, she also told me she had meetings at Tower 2, where this frame was picked up. Funny thing is, there are no dentists in Tower 2. The room was dead silent. Now, I'm not sharing this to embarrass her. I'm sharing it because this is the last time I pretend everything is okay. Because Barbara taught me something. You can lie quietly for months, but the truth has a voice. And tonight, it's mine. I clicked the remote again. The photo disappeared. The room sat in stunned silence. Some people looked away. Nancy looked like she'd swallowed a brick. Kevin gave me the faintest nod. Barbara? She just sat there, hands in her lap. No tears. No speech. Just the kind of silence that says, I've been caught, and I have no cards left to play. I left the room. I didn't need to stay for the cleanup. I'd already cleared out my half of the house the day before. And the best part? She didn't even know yet. She'd walk in later to a home half empty, with closets that echoed, drawers wiped clean, and a note taped to the mirror. One sentence. This is what freedom feels like. Happy birthday, Barbara. By the time Barbara finally reached me, 2 days had passed since the party. 2 full days of silence, 2 full days of her calls going straight to voicemail, her texts unanswered. She'd sent everything from "Can we talk?" to "You embarrass me in front of everyone I know," to the inevitable "Hail Mary, I still love you." That one almost got me. Almost. But love doesn't survive in a vacuum. It needs truth, it needs loyalty, and it sure as hell needs a pulse. What we had, that was dead. She just didn't know how to bury it properly. So I gave her the courtesy of one final meeting on my terms, at my time, in a place where the walls didn't have memories. Tuesday night, 6 p.m., I texted her one line. Meet me at the park off Ridgeview. Bring nothing. She responded instantly. Okay. Thank you. She didn't ask why. She probably assumed this was my version of closure. She wasn't wrong. I just had a different idea of what closure looks like. The Ridgeview Park had this old concrete picnic shelter, one of those places the city pretends is historical, when really it just hasn't been condemned yet. It was mostly empty that time of night. Kids had gone home. Dog walkers stuck to the trails. And the only noise was the occasional buzz of a lamppost fighting to stay alive. I got there first, brought a folding chair and set it dead center under the shelter roof. Barbara arrived 3 minutes late, wearing all black. I'm sure it was intentional. Morning clothes. Subtle drama. Like she was starring in some off-Broadway tragedy called Woman Who Made a Mistake. She walked slowly. Tentative. Like she was approaching a wounded animal. The problem was, I wasn't wounded. I was finished. She sat down across from me, folding her hands in her lap like she was waiting to speak to a judge. I didn't think you'd actually want to see me, she said. I looked at her for a long second. Then I said, I don't. She flinched. Then why am I here? Because you needed this more than I did. She looked down at her hands, nodding slowly. I deserved everything that happened at the party. No, you didn't, I said, leaning back. You deserved more. Her head jerked up. You deserved to be confronted a long time ago. You deserved honesty, yours and mine. But I kept giving you chances, assuming you were still the person I married. That's on me. She swallowed. William, I know I hurt you. No, Barbara. You didn't hurt me. You gutted me. There's a difference. Hurting someone is a bad day. This was a campaign. This was months of lies and half-truths. You didn't trip into this. You packed a bag and walked into it. She blinked, speechless. You want to talk about what happened? I said. Fine. Let's talk. I do, she said quickly. I really do. I didn't know how to bring it up. Don't lie again. I cut in. You knew. You just didn't want to lose both men at the same time. That was your real fear. She went quiet. I continued. You kept me around for stability. For the image. The house, the friends, the dinners with your sister where you got to say, William grilled salmon last night. It was perfect. I was your anchor. Derek? He was your escape hatch. You had both. Until you didn't. I'm not proud of any of it, she said. Not being proud isn't the same as being sorry. She sighed. I am sorry. No, Barbara. You're sorry that you got caught. You're sorry that your frame got exposed, that your private little fantasy got dragged into daylight. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry that now you're alone. I'm not with him anymore, she said quickly, like that might fix something. I actually laughed. That's convenient. She shifted in her seat, defensive now. He pulled away after the party. Said he wasn't ready for the drama. So he wanted the affair, but not the reality. Sounds familiar. She winced. You don't have to keep punishing me. I'm not. I'm explaining why we're never going back. I never asked to go back. I tilted my head. Then what are we doing here? I don't know, she said, and now her voice cracked. I wanted to see you. I wanted to look you in the eye and say that I know I wrecked everything. I did. And if I could go back and stop myself, I would. I let that hang in the air a moment. Then I said, that's the problem. You think regret is currency. She looked confused. You think if you feel bad enough, it's worth something. That it buys you a second chance. It doesn't. Regret is free. Change costs. And you, Barbara, you never paid for anything. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man across from her. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she thought I'd come here to cry, to beg her for clarity, to ask her why. But I didn't need why. I already knew why. Because she could. Because it felt good. Because it was easier than facing herself. I gave you everything, I said. The boring parts, the good parts, the frustrating, quiet, ordinary parts that most people take for granted. You had loyalty on tap. And you used it like wallpaper. I know, she whispered. And now? Now I'm walking away clean. Because you don't get to keep my story. Tears slid down her face. Quiet, steady ones. I loved you, she said. I believe that. Once. But not enough. She reached into her coat and pulled out something wrapped in tissue paper. I frowned. What is that? She pushed it toward me across the table. I didn't touch it. It's the frame, she said. The one with the photo. I smashed it. Thought maybe it'd give me peace. It didn't. I didn't look at it. I didn't need to. I don't want it, I said. But it's ruined. I thought maybe. No, I cut in. It's yours. You keep it. Because that's your legacy now. That picture? That night? That moment? You immortalized it. And now you live with it. She looked down at her lap again. Are you really divorcing me? I already filed. Shock passed across her face. You didn't even tell me. I don't owe you a press release. Her voice cracked. So that's it. That's it. She nodded slowly, as if giving herself permission to accept it. Then she stood, wiped her face, and turned to go. She walked 5 steps before turning back. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I forgive myself. But I want you to know I'll never stop wishing I had been better for you. I looked at her. You should have started sooner. And with that, she walked away. No hug. No dramatic goodbye. Just footsteps fading into the cold night. And me? I stayed in that folding chair a little longer. Not because I was sad, but because I was calm. Really, truly calm for the first time in a year. Because I didn't just get closure. I gave it. On my terms. And Barbara? She finally learned the difference between losing someone and being left behind. She hadn't just lost me. She'd been disqualified. And I'd never been so free. There's a thing people don't tell you about endings. They're quiet. Not poetic. Not dramatic. Just quiet. No orchestral music swelling in the background. No final scene where you walk off into the sunset with a wise expression and a new haircut. Just you, your car keys, a moderately clean apartment, and the steady hum of a refrigerator that doesn't ask questions. That's where I found myself. 3 months after the final conversation, I was living in a 2-bedroom rental on the east side of town. Not glamorous, not tragic. Just mine. I had a $40 couch I picked up from a guy on Craigslist who insisted on calling me brother, a bed I assembled myself, and a kitchen that still smelled faintly like the last tenant's curry obsession. And it was perfect. Barbara moved out of our old place a week after I filed. She left behind a few things, fridge magnets from trips we never took, a drawer of random chargers with no matching devices, and that one yellow raincoat I always hated. She didn't fight for anything. Didn't beg. No last-minute tears on the front lawn. Just a signed envelope from her lawyer and a polite text that said, "I hope life brings you peace." It did, but not for the reason she thought. See, peace doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from walking through it and realizing you didn't die on the other side. I'd done the work, held the mirror, faced the shame, gutted the memories. And in the end, I wasn't hollow. I was lighter. My mornings were different now. No more two-person routines. No soft sighs from the bathroom, no passive-aggressive questions about whether I really needed that much butter in the pan. Just me, my coffee, and the local news blaring nonsense while I sat in a folding chair by the window like some retired philosopher. It wasn't lonely. It was uncluttered. Friends called, of course. The ones who stuck around. The ones who hadn't taken sides or tried to play mediator like it was some kind of morality Olympics. My buddy Chris invited me to poker nights again. Nancy, bless her, dropped off a lasagna and told me she was glad I'd burned the whole illusion down before it killed you. "You're the only person I know," she said, "who can turn betrayal into a TED Talk." I told her I'd take that as a compliment. She said it wasn't. Even my mom, who lives 3 states over and once tried to set me up with our second cousin's hairdresser, sent a card that read, "Sometimes, God breaks your heart to save your soul." She always had a flair for religious drama. I stuck it on my fridge next to the electric bill. I kept working. Same job, different approach. I no longer stayed late just to avoid going home. I didn't grind myself into a ghost out of obligation. I did what was needed and went home to my space, my rules, my peace. Barbara tried to call once. Unknown number. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail that I never listened to. The file sat in my inbox for weeks, marked unread, like a sealed letter from a past life I had no interest in rereading. Derek? Rumor had it he'd transferred to another office. Probably embarrassed. Probably already on to the next, unhappy but thrilling entanglement. That's how guys like that operate. Always chasing the illusion of something meaningful without the burden of maintenance. They deserve each other. Or better yet, they deserve to be alone with themselves. The divorce finalized quietly. No hearings. No drawn-out battles. We didn't have kids, which made things cleaner. Assets split, names signed, papers filed. That's it. 20 minutes of paperwork to erase 15 years of marriage. Kind of poetic, in a bureaucratic way. I got the house. Not because I wanted it, but because she didn't fight for it. It sat vacant for a while before I sold it to a retired couple who wanted a place to garden. I hope they do. That place needed some real roots. I took the profit, paid off a few lingering debts, and invested the rest. Not in stocks or crypto. In myself. I enrolled in a woodworking class. Something tactile. Something real. Turns out, I'm not terrible at building things. I made a bookshelf last month that didn't collapse under its own weight. That's progress. I also joined a rec softball league. Chris dragged me into it. "You need to hit something that doesn't hit back," he said. We came in 3rd place. Not bad for a bunch of guys in their 40s with collectively 2 good knees and a Costco membership between us. Dating? I dipped a toe in. Nothing serious. Just coffee here, dinner there. The apps were a nightmare. Every other profile read like a ransom note. No games. No drama. Must love dogs. One woman listed her deal breakers in alphabetical order. I admired the commitment, but it felt like applying for a job at a company that already hated me. Still, I met a woman named Claire. Nurse. Funny. Too smart to fall for my sarcasm. We had a few great conversations, then decided to keep things open and easy. No declarations. No illusions. Just 2 people learning how to laugh again. It's strange how clarity works. When you're in something toxic, it feels like quicksand. Every movement, every question, pulls you deeper. But once you step out, once you dry off and take a good, long look at what you were actually stuck in, you start to wonder how you ever lived that way. Barbara wasn't the villain of my story. She was just the wrong character in the wrong chapter. I wasn't her hero, either. I was her comfort zone. The guy she counted on to stay put while she went off chasing validation dressed as spontaneity. I used to think marriage was about compromise. But now I think it's about clarity. About picking someone who won't just stand next to you at weddings, but someone who stays close when you're unremarkable, when you're tired, when you're not performing. Someone who tells you the truth even when it's inconvenient. Barbara liked ideas. not reality. I prefer reality. It's messier, but at least it's honest. So here I am now. Not healed, because healing isn't a place you arrive at. It's a practice, a habit, like brushing your teeth or setting the coffee maker before bed. But I'm steady. I don't flinch when I hear her name. I don't replay the betrayal like a broken tape. And I don't miss the version of myself that tolerated half-love. I'm building a life, one honest piece at a time. And this time, no frames, no plaques, no polished pictures of a lie. Just real wood, real weight, and no one else's name on it but mine. Subscribe to the channel